Hi everyone, I'm Michael Goff. Welcome to Chronicles of Clarity, and today we're going to jump into the free speech debate that's going on right now, specifically citing the Biden versus Missouri case, and we're going to show you a clip from Jim Jordan in a Senate hearing today that was released where he calls out the DOJ because they are unaware that this case is even going on. Let's start with an article from The Hill. It's titled Missouri versus Biden and the Crossroads of Politics, Censorship, and Free Speech. I'll bring you up to speed on what is this even about. A federal appellate court concluded on September 8th that multiple White House, Surgeon General, FBI, and CDC officials likely breached the fine line separating permissible government persuasion and jawboning from illicit, quote, coercion and significant encouragement, end quote, when they repeatedly and often successfully lobbied social media companies to, quote, remove disfavored content and accounts from their sites, end quote.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
You can't handle the truth.
In short, acts of, quote, coerced censorship, end quote, by the platform since early 2021 are now attributable to the federal government. This allows First Amendment free speech claims filed by Missouri, Louisiana, and several individuals to proceed against officials like Surgeon General Vivek Murthy and White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. The government targeted for suppression views and alleged misinformation that didn't comport with its stance on contentious topics like the COVID-19 lab leak theory and the efficacy of pandemic lockdowns and vaccines.
The theory that the COVID pandemic was caused by a leak from a Chinese government-controlled lab was largely dismissed by mainstream scientists at the start of the pandemic. Famously and influentially, this letter to The Lancet in February of 2020, signed by 24 scientists.
We stand together to strongly condemn conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump argued the opposite.
Have you seen anything at this point that gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of this virus?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Many in America and beyond took their cue on what to believe based on what they thought of Donald Trump.
We know that it's been debunked that this virus was man-made or modified or anything like that, but as you
skip forward 3 years and Donald Trump has left the White House, and there is less certainty in the natural origins theory. This week, the FBI director, for the first time publicly, gave the agency's official position.
The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident in Wuhan.
This comes on top of leaked extracts of a report by the US Department of Energy that concluded that the lab leak was the most likely hypothesis.
The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit's ruling in Missouri versus Biden temporarily bars the officials from coercing or significantly encouraging social media companies to remove, delete, suppress, or reduce posted social media content containing protected free speech. The court delayed the ban for 10 days, giving the government a chance to file an emergency appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court. And so that's where we find ourselves. It turns out that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear this case, which will have huge implications regarding free speech and social media. Now, I'm going to take you now to a Senate hearing and let you see exactly how disconnected the current administration is from this lawsuit.
I'll recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop.
Ms. Clarke, in the Missouri versus Biden case in the district court, the court explained, quote, if the allegations made by the plaintiffs are true, the present case arguably involves the most massive attack on free speech in United States history, close quote. Court went on to find that the plaintiffs were reasonably likely to succeed on the merits at trial, entered a preliminary injunction. The Fifth Circuit has affirmed. The Supreme Court has taken jurisdiction of the case. Of course, that's all civil litigation. Is any criminal investigation or prosecution of the persons responsible for that activity in the FBI, CISA, and at the White House and their co-conspirators underway in the Civil Rights Division?
Congressman, I'm not familiar with this litigation, but happy to bring your question back.
I don't know. Let me look it up.
Thank you. So let me just make sure I understand that. You are not aware of the Missouri versus Biden litigation that is currently being taken up by the United States Supreme Court. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, I'm not, Congressman.
Well, assuming that you're not aware of that, what reason would there be that the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department's leader is unaware of what a United States District Court has described as the most massive attack on free speech in the United States history?
If you could share more of the facts, that could be helpful, Congressman.
Crickets, crickets, crickets.
Otherwise, you just don't know. Is that correct?
That's correct. Unfortunately, this does not appear to be a case that I'm familiar with.
Well, good enough. I'm going to yield the balance of my time to the chairman.
Is the gentleman from Ohio want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I find that to be astounding. I do want to follow up on the line of questioning with the gentleman from California with respect to the FACE Act implementation, because Ms. Clarke, you dismissed saying, well, I can't.
Whose time are we doing now? Go ahead, Mr. Bishop.
It's my time. I'll let the gentleman.
That's what
I may ask
sure
to
where
send to the gentleman from Ohio after you. But
I just wanted to point out that there have been at least 35 cases of the FACE Act being applied to pro-life groups and or churches, or pro-life people that are anti-abortion in your tenure, not even counting 2021. That's the data from 2022 and 2023 versus the 4 that we can point to, the 1 that you point to in January. So the point, gentleman from California, I would just ask, you're in your possession of your hands. You had a FOIA request that was responded to from a left-leaning group, the Center for Investigative Reporting. We've been asking for a copy of that FOIA about the prosecution levels and the numbers from your office for a long time, I think for almost a year, and we've not been responded to. So will you commit to sharing that FOIA request and all of the data of FACE Act prosecutions, specifically under your watch and generally?
I can absolutely bring this back to the division's FOIA officials and ensure that you receive a timely response. Please know that the division is committed to even-handed enforcement of the FACE Act.
Even under your watch, it's at least 35 to 1 or 2. That is not even-handed. That's far from even-handed. And importantly, Mark Houck, who was targeted, had a raid of his home, prosecuted under this, was acquitted by a jury. Have you apologized to him on behalf of the Department of Justice for that grave violation of his civil rights, having his family have to watch him being raided at his home, and then he's acquitted by a federal jury? Have you apologized to him?
Well, we follow the facts and apply the law. That is our job, and we welcome opportunities to engage with other pro-life groups that may be experiencing threats or acts of violence.
The answer to that is no. Does the
reclaiming my time, I yield to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I'm like, I think every member, at least on this side, but I would think every member, anyone watching, is just astounded that you are not familiar. The Assistant Attorney General for the Division of Civil Rights at the Justice Department is not familiar with a huge case, Missouri v. Biden, where in that case, I think it was 6 different federal agencies were found to be guilty of violating the First Amendment liberties of Americans, HHS, NIAID, FBI, DOJ, DHS, even the White House itself, and you are not familiar with that, is truly, frankly, I don't know what I think that's why the gentleman had time to yield back, because he didn't know what I don't know what we say. That is it's in front of the Supreme Court, and the head of Civil Rights Division doesn't know. That is scary. And if that doesn't in and of itself show that this Justice Department is political and doing things for political reasons, I do not know what does. I yield back, and I appreciate the gentleman's question.
I yield my time.
I'm astounded as well. Can you imagine a situation where your job at the head of the DOJ is civil liberties, and according to the court, if if all these facts bear out, this is the most egregious attack on free speech and civil liberties in America's history by that court's opinion, and you have no idea about it. That's why Jim Jordan is saying, I can't believe you don't know this. And the fact that you don't know this shows that it's politically motivated. Because I guarantee you, if this was the reverse in the political realm, the Democrats would definitely know about it. But the reason I wanted to bring this to the channel and for your knowledge to be aware of it is because free speech is the foundation of which America and freedom of nations are able to exist. And when it's attacked, it is a scary, scary situation, because if you cannot freely speak, you cannot think, because you need to be able to risk to be offensive in order to think, as Jordan Peterson would say. And so with that, I'd like to know your thoughts on this monumental case that the Supreme Court will soon give a judgment on. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this? Do you think that her ignorance of this case is just evidence of political motivation, like me? Please like, share, and subscribe this channel. We would really appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for watching Chronicles of Clarity.